Ambassador Zethkalar pressed his long fingers against the cool metal of his personal journal as the diplomatic ship Concordia entered the orbit of New Hartford. Through the viewing port, he could see the human colony world spinning slowly below. The planet looked young compared to the ancient worlds of the Valthian Confederacy. Green and blue swirled together under white clouds, and he could make out the geometric patterns of human settlements dotting the surface. This was his first assignment to study the newest species discovered by the galaxy. Humans had only made contact 6 months ago, and the Confederacy wanted to know everything about them. Zethkalar had been chosen for this task because of his experience with 12 different alien species. He thought this would be just another routine diplomatic mission. The ship's communication system buzzed with an incoming message. A human face appeared on the screen, showing a woman with short, dark hair and bright eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with small metal decorations on the collar. "Welcome to New Hartford, Ambassador Zethkalar. I am Governor Lisa Martinez. We are honored to host the first formal diplomatic meeting between our species." Zethkalar studied her face. Most species he had worked with maintained very serious expressions during first contact, but this human showed what appeared to be genuine warmth. Her mouth curved upward in what he recognized as a smile, and her eyes seemed to sparkle with something he could not identify. "Governor Martinez, I thank you for your welcome. I look forward to learning about your people. We have prepared quarters for you and your staff. Captain Jake Morrison will be your primary contact during your stay. He should be arriving at your ship within the hour." The communication ended, and Zethkalar made his first note in his journal. Human leaders appeared more informal than expected. Governor Martinez spoke directly without the complex honorifics used by most galactic species. This could indicate either lack of sophistication or confidence in their own worth. An hour later, Captain Morrison arrived aboard a small transport vessel. Zethkalar watched through the docking bay window as the human emerged from his ship. Morrison was tall for his species, with brown hair and a strong build. He wore a green uniform different from the governor's blue one. "Ambassador Zethkalar?" Morrison extended his hand as he approached. "I'm Jake Morrison. Welcome to our little corner of space." Zethkalar had studied human greeting customs and reached out to clasp the offered hand. Morrison's grip was firm but not aggressive. The human shook their joined hands up and down 3 times, then released his hold. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. I am ready to begin our discussions. Actually, before we dive into the formal stuff, would you like a tour of our facilities? Governor Martinez thought you might want to see how we live before we start talking treaties." This surprised Zethkalar. In his experience, diplomatic meetings began immediately with formal ceremonies and position statements. Delaying official business for tourism seemed inefficient. "If you believe it would be beneficial, I accept your offer." Morrison's face showed the same upward mouth curve as the governor. "Great. I think you'll find our setup pretty interesting. We do things a bit differently than most folks." They traveled to the planet's surface in Morrison's transport. As they descended through the atmosphere, Zethkalar observed the human settlements more closely. Unlike the perfect geometric cities of advanced civilizations, human towns seemed to grow organically. Buildings of different sizes and shapes clustered together without obvious planning. "Our main colony was established 8 years ago," Morrison explained as they flew over the largest settlement. "We started with prefabricated structures, but people began modifying them pretty quickly. Humans like to put their own stamp on things." They landed at a facility near the town center. Chief Administrator Amy Powell met them at the entrance. She was shorter than Morrison, with red hair pulled back in a practical style. Her blue uniform matched the governor's, but she wore it with less formality. "Ambassador, welcome to New Hartford. I hope you don't mind getting your hands dirty. I want to show you our agricultural section." Zethkalar followed Powell and Morrison through a series of connected buildings. The agricultural facility amazed him. Instead of the sterile, automated growing systems used by most advanced species, humans had created something that seemed part science, part art. Plants grew in carefully tended rows, but each section showed individual attention and creativity. "We use a combination of traditional farming and modern technology," Powell explained, stopping beside a large growing tank. This hydroponic system feeds about 200 people, but we also maintain soil gardens for crops that do better with natural growing methods. Why use both systems? Zethkalar asked. Would not full automation be more efficient? Powell and Morrison exchanged a look that seemed to communicate something without words. Efficiency isn't our only goal, Powell said. People need to feel connected to their food, their environment. Working in the gardens gives folks a sense of purpose and peace. Plus, if the technology fails, we still know how to grow food the old-fashioned way. This concept puzzled Zethkalar. Most species adopted the most advanced methods available and abandoned older techniques. Maintaining backup systems showed either lack of confidence in their technology or unusual foresight. They continued the tour, visiting workshops where humans created everything from furniture to artistic decorations. Dr. Helen Brooks, Earth's xenobiology specialist, joined them at the research facility. She was an older human with gray hair and intense eyes that reminded Zethkalar of a scholar. Ambassador, we have been studying the biological samples your advanced team provided. Human and Vielthian biology are more compatible than we initially thought. This opens interesting possibilities for medical cooperation. Your research methods appear quite thorough, Zethkalar observed, looking at the equipment around them. We believe in being careful with other people's biology, Dr. Brooks replied. One species' medicine can be another's poison. We want to help, not harm. That evening, Zethkalar attended his first formal meeting with the human negotiating team. Commander Rick Sullivan from the Colonial Defense Force joined Governor Martinez, Captain Morrison, and Dr. Brooks around a large wooden table. The table itself surprised the ambassador. Most diplomatic meetings used metal or synthetic surfaces, but humans had chosen natural wood that showed grain patterns and small imperfections. Before we begin formal negotiations, Governor Martinez said, we want to establish ground rules that work for everyone. We understand that different species have different needs and customs. What proposals do you have? Zethkalar asked. Commander Sullivan leaned forward. We believe in direct communication. If something bothers you or doesn't make sense, say so immediately. We would rather solve small problems quickly than let them become big problems later. This approach differed greatly from standard diplomatic protocol, where concerns were usually expressed through careful hints and indirect language. The human method seemed almost dangerous in its directness. We also want to make sure everyone gets what they need from these talks, Morrison added. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about building something good for both our peoples. The meeting continued for 2 hours. Zethkalar observed how the humans interacted with each other during discussions. They disagreed openly about various points, sometimes arguing with passion, but they never seemed to take the disagreements personally. When Sullivan questioned one of Martinez's proposals, she listened carefully and modified her position based on his concerns. You argue among yourselves quite freely, Zethkalar commented during a break in the discussions. Good decisions require different viewpoints, Dr. Brooks replied. If we all thought the same way, we would make the same mistakes repeatedly. Disagreement helps us find better solutions. Near the end of the meeting, an emergency alarm sounded throughout the building. Red lights flashed, and a voice announced a power grid failure affecting half the colony. Zethkalar expected the meeting to end immediately. In his experience, such emergencies required full attention from leadership. Instead, the humans continued their discussion while monitoring the situation through their communication devices. Do you not need to respond to this crisis? He asked. Our people know what to do, Martinez replied calmly. Emergency protocols are in place. We will check on the situation when we finish here, but panicking will not help anyone. Through the window, Zethkalar could see humans working by portable lights to repair the damaged systems. They moved with purpose but not panic, working together to solve the problem with whatever tools and materials they could find. Within an hour, power was restored to most of the affected areas. The humans had not followed any complex emergency procedures. Instead, they had improvised solutions using creativity and teamwork. As Zethkalar returned to his quarters that night, he made several notes in his journal. These humans displayed unusual characteristics that did not fit standard patterns for technological species. They maintained old methods alongside new ones, valued individual expression within group cooperation, and approached problems with flexible thinking rather than rigid protocols. Most interesting was their apparent lack. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Zeth Kalar arrived on New Hartford, and he found himself more confused about humans than when he first landed. Every day brought new observations that challenged his understanding of how intelligent species should behave. He had begun to call it the human paradox in his private notes. The morning started with what humans called a cultural exchange event. Education coordinator Beth Johnson had organized the gathering to help both species learn about each other's history and traditions. Zeth Kalar walked through the main plaza where humans had set up displays showing their art, music, and historical artifacts. "Ambassador, please join us over here," called Peter Clark, one of the human historians. He stood beside a large stone monument covered with names and dates. "We want to show you something important about our people." Zeth Kalar approached the memorial, reading the inscribed text. The monument honored humans who had died in various conflicts throughout their history. What puzzled him was that it also included names of former enemies who had later become allies. "This section remembers soldiers from the Luna Independence War," explained Maria Santos, another historian. "These names on the left fought for Earth, these on the right fought for the lunar colonies. They killed each other for 3 years, but now their descendants work together in peace." "You honor your enemies alongside your heroes?" Zeth Kalar asked. "Former enemies," Peter corrected gently. "We learned that yesterday's enemy can become tomorrow's friend if both sides are willing to change. Remembering the cost of conflict helps us choose cooperation over fighting." This concept troubled Zeth Kalar. In his experience, species either celebrated victory completely or tried to forget defeats entirely. The idea of learning from both seemed inefficient and emotionally complicated. Their conversation was interrupted by shouts from the construction site across the plaza. A support beam had collapsed, trapping several workers underneath the twisted metal. Both humans and members of Zeth Kalar's staff had been working together on a new communications building. "Medical emergency at the construction site," came the announcement over the colony's communication system. "All available medical personnel respond immediately." Zeth Kalar watched as Dr. Rachel Green arrived first at the scene. She carried a medical kit and began examining the injured without stopping to ask which species they belonged to. A Vielthian engineer named Kethmore lay unconscious beside a human worker named Tony Rodriguez, who had a badly broken leg. "Get me 2 stretchers, and prep the medical bay for surgery," Dr. Green called to her team. Nurse supervisor Tony Rodriguez, who shared a name with the injured worker, organized the other medical staff with calm efficiency. "Doctor, should we not treat the human first?" asked one of Zeth Kalar's medical advisors. "He is more seriously injured." Dr. Green looked up from where she was checking Kethmore's vital signs. "I treat patients based on medical need, not species. Kethmore has internal bleeding that could kill him in minutes. Rodriguez's leg can wait." Zeth Kalar observed how the human medical team worked. They moved quickly but never seemed panicked. Each person knew their role and executed it without waiting for detailed orders. Most impressive was their assumption that all injured beings deserved equal care. "Why do you prioritize treatment by injury severity rather than species loyalty?" Zeth Kalar asked Dr. Green later as she finished treating the last patient. "Because healing is about preserving life, not politics," she replied while cleaning her medical instruments. "Pain feels the same whether you are human or Vielthian. My job is to stop that pain for everyone." The next day brought Zeth Kalar to the engineering section where humans and his technical staff were trying to solve compatibility problems between their technologies. Engineer Sarah Kim and technician Matt Edwards worked alongside Vielthian specialists to integrate communication systems. "The problem is that our quantum frequencies operate on different wavelengths," Sarah explained, showing Zeth Kalar a complex diagram. "Your technology is more advanced, but it doesn't talk to our systems. Perhaps you should abandon your primitive methods and adopt our superior technology," suggested one of Zeth Kalar's engineers. Matt Edwards shook his head. Our systems might be simpler, but they are also more flexible. Maybe we can find a way to combine the best of both approaches. For the next 6 hours, Zethkalar watched the mixed team work on the problem. The humans refused to accept that the technologies were incompatible. They tested dozens of different approaches, each failure teaching them something new. When conventional solutions failed, they tried unconventional ones. What if we use your quantum processors but route them through our adaptive circuits? Sarah suggested during their 15th attempt. That should not work according to established principles, replied the Vielthian engineer. Let's try it anyway, Matt said, already beginning to modify the circuits. To everyone's surprise except the humans, the hybrid system worked perfectly. It combined Vielthian precision with human adaptability, creating something better than either technology alone. How did you know to try that approach? Zethkalar asked Sarah. We didn't know it would work, she admitted. But we knew the problem was not unsolvable. There is always a solution if you keep looking for it. That evening, Zethkalar attended what humans called a community celebration. Administrator Julia Chen had organized the event to thank everyone who had helped with the construction accident. The gathering took place in the main recreation hall, with food, music, and various games. Cultural Liaison Officer Steve Morgan approached Zethkalar carrying 2 cups of a steaming liquid. Ambassador, try this coffee. It's one of our favorite beverages. The drink was bitter but somehow pleasant. Zethkalar sipped it slowly while observing the humans around him. They had divided into groups engaged in different competitive activities. Some played games that required physical skill, others tested mental abilities, and still others involved pure chance. Your people seem to enjoy competition, Zethkalar observed. We love to compete, Steve agreed, but not to destroy each other. Watch this. He led Zethkalar to a table where 4 humans were playing a complex strategy game. They argued loudly about moves and strategies, sometimes accusing each other of cheating or making stupid decisions. But when one player made a particularly clever move, the others praised the achievement even though it hurt their own chances of winning. I don't understand, Zethkalar said. They want to win, but they celebrate when opponents succeed. We compete to bring out the best in everyone, Steve explained. A victory means more when your opponent plays well. Easy wins teach nothing. Later, Zethkalar watched humans dance to music. Unlike the formal, precise movements used in Vielthian ceremonies, human dancing seemed chaotic and individual. Yet somehow the dancers moved together in harmony, each person expressing themselves while contributing to the group performance. Dancing looks different for everyone, Julia Chen said, noticing his interest. There are no wrong moves as long as you feel the music and respect the other dancers. How do you maintain group coordination without strict rules? Zethkalar asked. We listen to each other and to the music. Everyone contributes something different, but we all share the same rhythm. As the evening continued, Zethkalar observed children playing alongside adults. Human young were not separated from important activities like in most species. Instead, they participated in simplified versions of adult tasks, learning through experience rather than formal instruction. A small human child approached him, showing no fear of his alien appearance. Are you the ambassador from space? She asked with curiosity. Yes, I am Zethkalar from the Vielthian Confederacy. Do you have children on your planet? We do, but they remain in educational facilities until they reach maturity. The child looked puzzled. That sounds lonely. How do they learn about real life? Before Zethkalar could answer, the child's parent called her away, but her question stayed with him. How indeed did young Vielthians learn about real life when they were isolated from it? Throughout the celebration, Zethkalar noticed how humans handled disagreements. When 2 groups wanted to use the same space for different activities, they negotiated a solution that satisfied both. When someone accidentally spilled food on another person, both individuals laughed about the accident instead of taking offense. Your people seem remarkably tolerant of mistakes and inconveniences, he commented to Julia Chen. Life is messy, she replied with a smile. Getting upset about every small problem would waste energy we need for important things. Besides, Today's accident might become tomorrow's funny story. As the evening ended, Zethkalar returned to his quarters with his mind full of observations. Humans displayed contradictions that should have made them weak but somehow made them stronger. They competed fiercely while supporting their competitors. They maintained individual identity while working for group success. They faced serious problems with determination, but treated minor inconveniences with humor. Most puzzling was their relationship with failure. Instead of seeing failure as something to hide or forget, humans seemed to view it as valuable information. They failed quickly, learned from the experience, and tried again with better knowledge. In his journal that night, Zethkalar wrote about the human paradox. Ambassador Zethkalar was reviewing his morning reports when the ground beneath his feet began to shake. The tremor started gently, like the vibration from heavy machinery, but quickly grew stronger. Books fell from shelves, and the lights flickered as the building swayed back and forth. Seismic activity detected, announced the colony's emergency system. Magnitude 7.3 earthquake affecting the eastern settlements. All emergency personnel report immediately. Through his window, Zethkalar could see dust clouds rising from the direction of Pine Ridge, a mining settlement about 50 kilometers away. The shaking stopped after 2 minutes, but he knew this was only the beginning of the crisis. Communications Officer Linda Wright's voice came over the intercom system. Governor Martinez to the command center immediately. We have reports of collapsed buildings and trapped survivors in Pine Ridge. Emergency Manager Paul Anderson is coordinating response teams. Zethkalar made his way to the command center, curious, to observe how humans handled large-scale disasters. In his experience, most species either followed rigid emergency protocols or descended into chaos when faced with unexpected crises. He wondered which path humans would choose. The command center buzzed with controlled activity. Governor Martinez stood at the central console with Emergency Manager Paul Anderson, both studying incoming reports from the affected area. The screens around them showed damage assessments, resource inventories, and rescue team locations. How many people are in Pine Ridge? Martinez asked. 347 permanent residents plus about 60 visiting workers, Anderson replied, checking his tablet. We have communication with roughly half of them. The rest are either trapped or in areas where communication towers were damaged. Ambassador Zethkalar, Martinez noticed him entering. Would you like to observe our emergency response procedures? Your people might learn something useful, and we could benefit from your perspective. I would be honored to observe, Zethkalar replied. He had expected to be excluded from such sensitive operations. Dr. Kevin Lee, the colony's chief medical officer, approached the command group. We have confirmed casualties. At least 12 people are trapped in the collapsed community center, and the main medical facility is severely damaged. We need to establish a field hospital. What resources do we have available? Martinez asked. 2. Medical transport vehicles, 4 general-purpose aircraft, and about 30 people with emergency rescue training, Anderson replied. We also have construction equipment that could be used for moving debris. Zethkalar watched as the humans organized their response. Unlike the rigid hierarchies he was accustomed to, the human system seemed fluid. People took initiative based on their expertise, rather than waiting for detailed orders from superiors. Rescue coordinator Amanda Foster arrived with a team of volunteers. Governor, we are ready to deploy to Pine Ridge. Dr. Lee's medical team can ride with us, and we have room for any alien observers who want to help. I appreciate the offer, Zethkalar said, but I have no training in emergency rescue. Neither did most of us before today, Foster replied with a slight smile, but extra hands are always useful, even if they just carry supplies or comfort frightened people. An hour later, Zethkalar found himself in a transport aircraft flying toward the disaster zone. Through the windows, he could see the extent of the damage. Several buildings had collapsed completely, others leaned at dangerous angles, and debris covered the streets. Yet he also saw signs of organized activity as rescue teams worked methodically through the destruction. Field Operations Chief Carlos Rivera met them at the temporary landing site. We have located most of the missing people. The good news is, The casualties are lower than expected. The bad news is that 12 people are still trapped in the community center basement, and the building is unstable. Dr. Lee immediately began setting up a medical station in a clear area near the landing site. How serious are the injuries we have seen so far? Mostly cuts, bruises, and broken bones, Rivera replied. 3 people have serious injuries that need immediate attention, but they are stable for now. Zethkalar watched as search specialist Jenny Walsh and her team prepared to enter the damaged community center. They moved carefully, testing each step and using sensors to detect signs of life beneath the rubble. What impressed him was their calm determination despite the obvious danger. "Why do you risk your lives for people you may not even know?" he asked Jenny as she prepared her equipment. "Because they would do the same for us," she replied simply. "That is what communities do. We take care of each other." Logistics Officer Alex Turner approached with a tablet showing supply inventories. "We have enough medical supplies for immediate needs, but if we are trapped here for several days, we will need more food and water. The main water treatment plant was damaged." "Can we repair it?" Rivera asked. "Maybe. Engineer Sarah Kim is looking at it now. She thinks it might work if we can find substitute parts for the damaged components." Zethkalar observed how the humans adapted to each new challenge. When their equipment could not penetrate thick debris, they improvised new tools using materials from damaged buildings. When communication systems failed, they organized relay runners to carry messages between work sites. Social worker Nancy Bell moved among the survivors, checking on their emotional state, as well as their physical condition. She sat with an elderly man who kept asking about his missing cat, and she helped a mother calm her frightened children. "Are you trained in psychological counseling?" Zethkalar asked her. "I have some training, but mostly I just listen and try to help people feel less alone," Nancy replied. "Fear and grief are normal responses to disaster. People need to know that someone cares about their pain." Counselor Greg Adams worked with the rescue teams themselves, watching for signs of stress and exhaustion. "Even heroes need support," he explained to Zethkalar. "We ask people to do dangerous, emotionally difficult work. The least we can do is help them process what they experience." As the day progressed, Zethkalar witnessed something that challenged his understanding of leadership. Security Chief Brian Johnson and Deputy Commander Lisa Wang made a decision that violated standard safety protocols. The community center was becoming more unstable, but they had located the trapped survivors and believed they could reach them with one more attempt. "The structural engineers say we should wait for heavy equipment," Wang reported to the command team. "How long until that equipment arrives?" Johnson asked. 6 hours minimum, possibly 12. "The people trapped inside don't have 12 hours, Johnson decided. "We go in now with maximum safety precautions. I take full responsibility for this decision." Zethkalar watched the rescue attempt with fascination and concern. The team moved through the damaged building with extraordinary care, using temporary supports to stabilize weakened areas as they advanced. When they encountered obstacles, they worked together to find solutions rather than abandoning the effort. 3 hours later, they emerged with all 12 survivors. Most had minor injuries, but 2 required immediate medical attention. Dr. Lee and his team worked efficiently to stabilize the patients while preparing them for transport to better medical facilities. "You succeeded despite violating safety regulations," Zethkalar observed to Johnson. "Sometimes following all the rules means people die," Johnson replied. "We calculated the risks and decided they were acceptable given the alternative. If I was wrong, I would face the consequences." "What consequences?" "Investigation, possible demotion, maybe criminal charges if my decision was truly reckless. But those people would still be alive." That evening, the community held an impromptu memorial service for the 3 people who had died in the earthquake. Chaplain Robert Cruz and community leader Diana Ross organized the gathering in what remained of the town square. Survivors, rescue workers, and visitors all participated together. "We gather not just to mourn our losses, but to celebrate the courage and compassion we have witnessed today," Cruz said to the assembled group. "In our darkest hour, we have seen the best of what it means to be human." Diana Ross spoke about each person who had died, sharing memories and stories that honored their lives. But she also spoke about the survivors and the rescue workers, recognizing acts of heroism both large and small. Every person who helped today showed us that we are stronger together than apart, she said. Every hand that moved debris, every voice that offered comfort, every heart that refused to give up hope made a difference. Zeth Kalar listened as ordinary people shared stories of extraordinary acts. A teenager who had organized other young people to deliver water to rescue workers. An elderly woman who had used her amateur radio to coordinate communications when official systems failed. A shop owner who had opened his damaged store to provide free supplies to anyone who needed them. You transform your grief into determination, he observed to Cruz after the service. Grief is love with nowhere to go, Cruz replied. We honor the dead by taking care of the living and working to prevent future tragedies. Later that night, as Zeth Kalar prepared his report on the day's events, he struggled to find words that would help his superiors understand what he had witnessed. Humans had faced a major disaster without the advanced technology or sophisticated emergency systems used. 2 months into his stay on New Hartford, Ambassador Zeth Kalar thought he was beginning to understand humans. Then the alarm sirens began wailing across the colony, and he discovered he had only seen one side of their nature. Unknown ships approaching. The system, announced the colony's defense network. Multiple vessels, probable pirate configuration. All civilian traffic maintained safe distance from military vessels. Zeth Kalar hurried to the command center where he found a very different atmosphere than during the earthquake response. The same people who had shown such warmth and compassion now displayed cold efficiency as they prepared for battle. Fleet Admiral Christine Parker stood at the central command station, her voice calm but authoritative as she coordinated the defense. Colonel Jason Scott, what is the status of our patrol ships? 3 frigates and 2 destroyers in system, Admiral. The destroyer Defender is closest to the approaching threat. Captain Rodriguez reports her ship is ready for engagement. How many pirate vessels are we facing? Parker asked. Sensors show 7 ships, mix of modified cargo haulers and light warships. They are broadcasting demands for tribute and threatening to attack civilian targets if we refuse. Zeth Kalar watched as the humans transformed their peaceful colony into a military command center. The same efficiency they had shown during the earthquake rescue now focused on the deadly business of war. Admiral, Ambassador Zeth Kalar requests permission to observe our operations, Colonel Scott reported. Parker looked at the alien diplomat with serious eyes. Ambassador, you are welcome to stay, but you will see a different side of humanity today. War brings out aspects of our nature that we prefer to keep hidden. I understand the dangers of combat observation, Zeth Kalar replied. I am curious how your people balance their peaceful nature with military necessity. The main screen showed tactical displays as the human fleet moved to intercept the pirates. Captain Emma Rodriguez commanded the lead destroyer from the bridge of the Defender. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Neil Brooks, coordinated with the other ships to establish a defensive formation. Admiral, the pirates are demanding 10,000 tons of processed minerals and safe passage through our territory, Brooks reported. They claim this system is now under their protection. Response? Parker asked. Standard reply. We do not negotiate with pirates. They have one opportunity to leave peacefully before we consider them hostile. Zeth Kalar observed how the humans approached the military situation. Unlike many species that relied on overwhelming force or complex battle plans, humans seem to consider multiple factors beyond pure military objectives. What about civilian casualties? Rodriguez asked over the communication system. Several mining operations are in the outer system. The pirates could target them if we engage directly. Commander Patricia Hill, status on civilian evacuation? Parker requested. Most civilians are moving to protected areas, but the mining station on Asteroid 7 cannot evacuate in time. They have 43 people aboard. Then we protect them, Parker decided. Rodriguez, position your task force between the pirates and Asteroid 7. We fight on our terms, not theirs. The tactical display showed the human ships moving into position. Zeth Kalar noticed how they coordinated their movements to shield the civilian targets while maintaining offensive capability against the pirates. Admiral, incoming transmission from the pirate commander, the communications officer reported. Put it through. A rough human face appeared on the screen, scarred and displaying an unpleasant smile. I am Captain Reeves of the Red Tide Brotherhood. You have 5 minutes to begin loading our tribute, or we start shooting civilian targets. Admiral Parker's expression never changed. Captain Reeves, you have entered sovereign human territory and threatened innocent people. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. You think your few ships can stop us? We outnumber you and we have nothing to lose. Neither do we, Parker replied calmly and ended the transmission. Zethkalar was surprised by the Admiral's confidence. The pirates did outnumber the human fleet, and their vessels appeared heavily armed despite their improvised construction. Are you certain you can defeat them? He asked. No, Parker replied honestly, but we are certain we will try. Some things are worth fighting for, regardless of the odds. The battle began when the pirates opened fire on a mining transport that was trying to reach safety. The human ships responded immediately, their weapons targeting the pirate vessels, with precision that impressed Zethkalar. Commander Patricia Hill's engineering teams kept the damaged systems operational through creative repairs. Chief Petty Officer Andrew Chen and Specialist Melissa Torres worked frantically to maintain power to the weapons and shields as enemy fire took its toll. Hull breach on Deck 4, Hill reported from the Defender. We are rerouting power from secondary systems to maintain combat effectiveness. Zethkalar watched as the humans adapted to battle damage in real time. When conventional repairs were impossible, they improvised alternatives using whatever materials they had available. When primary systems failed, they found ways to accomplish the same tasks with backup equipment. The turning point came when Lieutenant Colonel Frank Moore volunteered his fighter squadron for a dangerous mission. The pirates had positioned one of their larger ships near Asteroid 7, using the civilian mining station as a shield while they bombarded the human fleet. I can get my pilots through their defensive screen, Moore reported to Admiral Parker, but it will mean flying through their crossfire with minimal fighter protection. What are your chances of success? Parker asked. Good enough to try. Those people on the asteroid deserve our best effort. Fighter pilots like Captain Lauren Baker and Major Chris Martinez launched their small ships into the crossfire between the opposing fleets. Zethkalar watched in amazement as they maneuvered through weapon fire that would have destroyed most vessels, using their skill and courage to reach the pirate ship. This is insane, one of Zethkalar's military advisors observed. They are, risking valuable pilots and equipment to save a few dozen civilians. Those are not just statistics, Colonel Scott replied. Every person on that mining station has family, friends, dreams for the future. We do not sacrifice people just because the numbers say it makes sense. The fighter attack succeeded in disabling the pirate ship's main weapons, allowing the human fleet to move closer to Asteroid 7. But the battle was far from over, and more pirate reinforcements were approaching the system. At that moment, Commodore Sandra Lewis made a decision that surprised everyone, including Zethkalar. She opened a communication channel to the entire pirate fleet. Attention, pirate vessels. Your commander's ship is disabled, and you are facing coordinated resistance. We offer you one final opportunity to surrender. Lay down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. You are offering mercy to pirates who threaten to murder civilians? Zethkalar asked. We are offering them a chance to choose a different path, Lewis replied. Some of them might be desperate people who turned to piracy because they saw no other options. Others are genuine criminals who deserve punishment. We will let the courts decide which is which. To everyone's surprise, 3 of the pirate ships accepted the surrender offer. The remaining vessels continued fighting, but the odds had shifted in favor of the human fleet. The battle ended 2 hours later with the complete defeat of the remaining pirates. In the aftermath, Zethkalar observed how humans treated their defeated enemies. Medical Officer Dr. Ryan Phillips and Trauma Specialist Dr. Michelle Santos treated wounded pirates with the same care they gave to injured human personnel. These people were trying to kill you an hour ago, Zethkalar pointed out to Dr. Phillips, as he worked on a badly injured pirate. An hour ago they were enemies. Now they are patients. My job is to heal, not to judge. The prisoners were processed according to strict legal procedures. Those who had surrendered voluntarily received different treatment than those who had fought to the end. Pirates who had committed violent crimes faced serious charges, while others might be offered opportunities for rehabilitation. Captain Reeves, the pirate commander, remained defiant even in defeat. "You think this changes anything? There are dozens of pirate fleets in this sector. More will come. Then we will face them when they arrive," Admiral Parker replied. "We do not start fights, but we finish them." Later that evening, Admiral Parker held a memorial service for the 3 human pilots who had died in the battle. The ceremony honored their sacrifice while also remembering the civilian miners whose lives had been saved. "We did not seek this fight," Parker said to the assembled personnel, "but when innocent people were threatened, we chose to stand between them and danger. That choice cost us good people, and we will remember their sacrifice." Zethkalar noticed that the memorial also included a moment of silence for the pirates who had died. Even in death, humans extended some measure of respect to their enemies. "Why do you mourn people who were trying to kill you?" he asked Chaplain Robert Cruz after the service. "Because they were still people," Cruz replied. "They made terrible choices, but they were someone's children, maybe someone's parents. War is sometimes necessary, but death is always tragic." That night, Zethkalar struggled to understand what he had witnessed. Ambassador Zethkalar stood in the main conference room for what would be his final week on New Hartford. 4 months of observations had filled his journals with notes about humanity, but he still felt like he was only beginning to understand these remarkable beings. Today would begin the formal treaty negotiations that would establish the future relationship between humans and the Velthian Confederacy. Chief Negotiator Angela Thompson entered the room carrying a thick folder of documents. She had spent weeks preparing proposals that would satisfy both species, while establishing new standards for interstellar diplomacy. Her approach differed greatly from traditional galactic negotiations. "Ambassador, before we begin the formal sessions, I want to discuss our philosophy," Thompson said as she arranged her materials. "Most treaties focus on what each side can take from the relationship. We want to focus on what we can build together." Legal Affairs Director Timothy Ross joined them at the conference table. "We have studied standard Confederacy treaty formats, and we think we can improve on them. Instead of rigid rules that might not fit future situations, we propose flexible frameworks that can adapt as both our species grow and change." Zethkalar reviewed their initial proposals with growing amazement. Traditional galactic treaties were complex documents that tried to predict and control every possible interaction between species. The human approach was elegantly simple, establishing broad principles and leaving room for creative interpretation. "This clause about technology sharing is unusual," he observed. "You propose mutual benefit rather than maximum advantage for either side." "Because maximum advantage for one side usually means disadvantage for the other," Thompson replied. "We want partnerships that make everyone stronger, not competitions where someone has to lose." Trade Representative Michelle Clark and Economic Advisor Gary Peterson presented their economic proposals. Instead of seeking the most favorable trade terms for humanity, they had designed agreements that would help both species develop their economies more effectively. "We analyzed the Confederacy's resource needs and production capabilities," Peterson explained. "Our proposal creates trade relationships that benefit everyone. We provide raw materials you need. You provide manufacturing, technology we want, and both sides profit from the exchange." "Why do you not seek maximum profit for your people?" Zethkalar asked. "Because maximum short-term profit often leads to long-term problems," Clark replied. "We want trade relationships that will last for generations. That requires fairness and mutual benefit, not one-sided exploitation." The cultural exchange provisions impressed Zethkalar even more than the economic agreements. International Relations Officer Stephanie Adams and Protocol Specialist Derek Johnson had designed programs that would allow both species to learn from each other while preserving their unique identities. "We do not want to become copies of each other," Adams explained. "Diversity makes everyone stronger, We want to share our best ideas while keeping what makes each species special. Your education exchange program is particularly interesting, Zeth Kalar noted. You propose that young humans study on Confederacy worlds while young Velthians study on human colonies. Young minds adapt more easily to new ideas, Johnson said. If our children grow up understanding each other, future conflicts become much less likely. The treaty negotiations continued for 3 days, but they felt more like collaborative planning sessions than adversarial bargaining. Both sides worked together to solve problems rather than trying to gain advantage over each other. During breaks in the formal sessions, Zeth Kalar observed the human negotiating team interacting with his staff. Event coordinator Patricia Young and diplomatic secretary Kenneth White organized informal gatherings where both groups could socialize and build personal relationships. Why do you emphasize personal connections during professional negotiations? Zeth Kalar asked Patricia. Because treaties are made between governments, but relationships are built between people, she replied. If our negotiators like and respect each other, they will work harder to find solutions that satisfy everyone. On the final day of negotiations, both sides signed agreements that would revolutionize galactic diplomacy. The treaties established new standards for fairness, flexibility, and mutual benefit that other species would likely adopt in their own negotiations. These agreements will require approval from the Confederacy Council, Zeth Kalar reminded the human team. We understand, Thompson replied. But we are confident that fair agreements will be easier to approve than unfair ones. Even your political leaders will see the benefits of partnerships based on mutual respect. That evening, Ambassador Zeth Kalar attended his farewell ceremony. The entire colony had gathered in the main plaza to thank him for his work and wish him well on his return journey. Governor Martinez presented him with a collection of human art and literature to share with his people. You came here as a diplomat assigned to study a new species, Martinez said to the assembled crowd. But you became something more important. You became our friend and partner in building a better future for all our peoples. The ceremony included performances of human music, poetry, and dance. Zeth Kalar particularly enjoyed a song composed by local musicians that combined human and Velthian musical traditions. The hybrid creation was more beautiful than either tradition alone. Children from the colony school presented him with drawings and letters expressing their hopes for continued friendship between the species. One drawing showed human and Velthian, children playing together on a planet that combined features of both worlds. What do you hope for when you grow up? Zeth Kalar asked a young girl who had drawn a picture of herself as an adult, working alongside alien scientists. I want to explore the galaxy and make friends with people from other worlds, she replied with the confidence that only children possess. There must be so many interesting things to learn from different species. Her answer reminded Zeth Kalar of something he had observed throughout his stay. Humans approach the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. They saw diversity as an opportunity for learning, rather than a threat to their security. As the ceremony concluded, Zeth Kalar reflected on how much he had changed during his time on New Hartford. He had arrived as a routine diplomatic observer, expecting to file standard reports about a newly discovered species. Instead, he was returning to the Confederacy capital as an advocate for revolutionary changes in galactic civilization. The next morning, as his ship prepared to depart, Zeth Kalar made his final journal entries about humanity. He wrote about their unique combination of traits that made them potentially the most significant diplomatic force the galaxy had ever encountered. Humans possessed something that most advanced species lost during their development. They remained curious about new experiences, adaptable to changing circumstances, and optimistic about future possibilities. This combination allowed them to approach problems with fresh perspectives and find solutions that others missed. More importantly, they had maintained their capacity for growth and change. While other species became rigid in their thinking as they matured, humans continued evolving their ideas and methods. They learned from both successes and failures, always seeking better ways to achieve their goals. Their approach to relationships was equally remarkable. Instead of viewing other species as competitors or threats, humans saw them as potential partners and teachers. They believed that cooperation produced better results than competition, that diversity strengthened rather than weakened communities. In his final observations, Zeth-Kalar wrote about the message he would carry back to the Confederacy leadership. Humanity represented more than just another species to add to the galactic community. They offered a new model for how intelligent beings could interact with each other. The human approach to diplomacy, trade, science, and social organization could revolutionize galactic civilization. Their emphasis on fairness, cooperation, and mutual benefit could replace the zero-sum thinking that had dominated interstellar relations for millennia. Most significantly, humans demonstrated that advanced technology and sophisticated thinking did not require abandoning compassion, creativity, or hope. They proved that strength could coexist with kindness, that efficiency could include humanity, that progress could benefit everyone rather than just the powerful. As his ship left orbit around New Hartford, Zeth-Kalar knew that his mission had succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. He had been sent to establish routine diplomatic relations with a minor new species. Instead, he was returning with the blueprint for a transformed galaxy. The Confederacy Council had assigned him to head a new diplomatic initiative based on human-inspired principles. His task would be to convince dozens of alien species to abandon traditional competitive approaches in favor of collaborative partnerships. It would not be easy. Many species were comfortable with existing power structures and would resist changes that threatened their advantages. But Zeth-Kalar had seen what was possible when beings chose cooperation over competition, when they approached problems with open minds and generous hearts. In his personal log, he made one final note about humanity. They had shown him that the future did not have to repeat the mistakes of the past. Different species could work together as